Thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Wilson.
And I'm Chris Emke.
And this is Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris, we got a fun one today.
A long project, long overdue.
Guys, you've all heard our super tech Jeremy Garnett on the show talking about a Hummer project he's been working on for about the last 8 months or so.
Yeah, got dropped off March 26th of this year.
So it's been a minute. Chris, why don't you give our listeners a quick refresher, and then we will kick it over to the ride-along.
Yeah, so it's a 2002, 2003 H1. Started its life off as a 6.5-liter diesel with a 4L80 transmission, four-wheel drive. The customer wanted to give it a couple extra ponies. So we did a fully forged rotating assembly LBZ long block, so Duramax motor. We fitted it with a set of Exergy 60% over injectors, 10mm CP3 pump, Stealth 67 G2 variable vane turbo, all the fixins, intercooler pipes, intercoolers, up pipes, manifolds, all the good stuff. Back that to a DT1000 transmission, so billet planetaries, billet input-output shaft, all that good stuff.
Full list.
Fast lift pump supporting the fuel, and then HXP, it's a company out of Jupiter, Florida, provided us with the conversion kit. So King coilover with reservoirs at all four corners, Willwood 6-piston caliper front and rear brake setup, and just a host of other crazy stuff. So. It was a really cool project. I can say this is probably one of the bigger projects that we've done at the shop for a customer.
Yeah.
You and I are both not strangers to doing bigger projects.
Sure.
The challenge this year is COVID. You know, getting parts, that's where a lot of this delay came in between the motor with the machine shop, lift parts, just you name it, there was a roadblock that came in the way. But we expected to have this project done in October. When I knew that that wasn't going to be the case, I had promised the owner that I would do everything in my power to deliver that vehicle before Christmas. And yeah.
Just under the wire.
We're here. We're here. And, as this is recording, the Hummer has shipped. So the customer has picked up the Hummer. There might be some videos coming up on that on YouTube, which we'll plug in here as time progresses. But yeah, like I said, really cool project.
I'm excited to see it out on the road. That was one of the fun things about kind of being around this type of stuff, as we get to see these crazy builds and we get to see the ins and outs of what that means and what that looks like. Yeah. But then also it's like, well, the experience is what it's all about.
I'll tell you what, guys, Paul, we've talked to so many guys over the years about conversions and, Cummins and Fords and Ford transmissions, behind the Cummins engine and Duramax swaps. We're not oblivious to this. Like, we've been around this. In most conversions, there is a lot of effort and time that gets put into this, and you a lot of hours.
Yeah.
The Duramax swap, this Hummer project, was one of those things where, got to kick it off to Jeremy, man. Like, attention to detail from start to finish. Like, it drives as if it was a factory setup at this rate. So, little things like the truck had a manual 4x4 setup. Now it's all electronic. It's been converted. Building, the controls for that and things like that. It's these little things that you don't think about, where like the Hummer has a mechanical gauge display. Well, that got retrofitted with analog gauges and then an Edge Insight CTS to monitor all your engine vitals. It's these little things that you have to convert over when doing the newer technology. That it's not just swap a motor and call it a day.
Yeah, no, this is not like a 12 valve, just bolt it in and plant it and go, right? This is like a full-on, it's a new vehicle. I mean, that's really what it feels like. And I think we made the right decision here. Usually Chris and I go out and take the trucks out, we go drive them, and we tell you guys all about it. This time we thought, like, Nick Priegnitz has a Duramax Hummer that pretty much was this build was
based on. It's a carbon copy,
right?
It's a carbon copy.
So this guy had I think actually initially inquired about just getting
buying
that
ours,
Hummer, and then decided, hey, actually I want to do my own, and that's great. So we thought Nick would be a good person to have in there as a resource to talk about what it's like in real life, what his experience has been, and then also like the tuning and the speccing of the build and things like that.
And then it's nice to team him up with Jeremy, right?
Exactly.
Jeremy was single-handedly the wrench on this project from start to finish. Like, the shop guys have their dedicated bays, right?
Yep.
This Hummer has been sitting on his lift in his bay for 6 months. So it's, I mean, he's married to this thing, and he did, like I said, a killer job. So, I think as a respect thing and, to give that real world experience, why not have the gentleman who tuned it and the gentleman that built it in the nitty-gritty, operating the vehicle to get their feedback.
Absolutely. So a big shout out to our sponsors, XDP, WC Fab, Exergy Performance, and of course, Calibrated Power Duramax Tuner. Guys, without any other further ado, we'll kick it over to our duo in the Hummer, and we'll talk to you after the new year.
Hi, I'm Nick Priegnitz.
I'm Jeremy Garnett.
Today we're in a 2005 Hummer. This is a truck that Jeremy's done a lot of work on over the past couple months. Converted from a 6.5 turbo diesel into a Duramax. So we're going to be driving it today, talking about where we started, how we got here, some of the hurdles, some of the pitfalls, and the fun, of course. So Jeremy, what's it like driving a stock Hummer?
Slow.
Slow.
Yeah.
Slow.
Yeah, slow, not fun, don't get out of their own way.
Okay.
So customer wanted a little bit more pick-me-up, so.
That's my experience. You know, we kind of grew up in the same era, the late 90s. The Hummers were very, you know, that was like the pinnacle, the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
But they're god-awful slow, man.
Yeah.
And they ride really rough, too. I mean, they're...
Right. You feel every bump, you feel, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta literally grind your teeth. So.
Yeah, they're very, very stiff suspension. I mean, it's a military vehicle adapted for the road.
Yeah.
Yes, it looks awesome, but the performance, I think anybody who spent any time in the military in one, basically disenchantment is the word that I would use.
Okay.
Okay, so we have, this customer has a civilian unit wagon 2005, and he wants to do a conversion on it. So, and what did you do to this thing? Let's run me through the kind of...
Well, we started off with, like I said, just a stock truck. Brought it in. He wanted to convert it to a Duramax, do the Duramax conversion. So we started off with pulling it into the bay, and first thing first, pull the body.
Okay.
So pull the body, and then we did a complete suspension swap as well, because he wanted it to ride better, look better, more power, of course. So
So the trucks are 150 horsepower stock or 165.
Yeah.
So obviously the braking is set up for that, the suspension's set up for that.
Exactly.
And all the other parts are built around that 165 horsepower.
Yeah. Some guys do it where they do it in pieces, like they do the suspension first, the motor, you know, second. You know, they do it in pieces.
Yep.
We kind of went a little bit further and did, you know, all out, but he wanted it to be kind of complete.
Yes.
When he gets it back, so which is nice.
Yeah, yeah. So you took out the 6.5 turbo diesel, you took out the 4L80. Did we reuse the stock transfer case?
No, we did a transfer case.
Okay.
The only thing that's stock in the original drivetrain is the hubs and the differentials.
Okay, so we still have the factory differentials in.
Yep.
We got the hubs. The big brake kit on this one?
Yes. Yep, we went with the Willwood brake kit. It's got 20-inch brake rotors on it. 20-inch
brake rotors. Holy cow. So normally these trucks have inboard brakes, and they're right off the differentials, and they're very awkward to stop. You get not a lot of good brake pedal feel, and then when you come to a stop, they also kind of rock because you have the U-joints and the differentials and the gear reduction on the opposite side of the brakes, so the brakes aren't directly connected to the wheels. So, of course, when you add a bunch of horsepower like this truck, it's nice to have that more positive brake feel.
Right.
Yeah.
You know when you're going to stop. So, yeah, it's kind of nice.
Yeah. So, what's I mean, you get the motor out, you start looking things over. What's your thought here? I mean, is this going to be a pretty basic deal, or is this, I mean, how daunting does this look to you?
Well, starting, it was like, okay, a lot of decisions had to be made, like where to run the exhaust, and like how do we run it? Do we go to one fuel tank, two fuel tanks, you know, stuff like that. You know, a lot of decisions and a lot of like getting the brakes to work properly. So this truck had ABS, where most trucks don't have ABS.
Okay.
So, okay, now I want to get the truck to work with ABS because I want it to work.
Yep.
That is hard because I've never done it before.
Right. So you're integrating all those late model features of the Hummer, the 2005 Hummer, into the platform.
Exactly.
With the late model controllers.
Yeah, and trying to make it.
So engine and trans, is the engine bolt, I mean, is it a bolt-in deal? Like, does it fit well?
It does, with the kit that is purchased.
Okay.
So with the new motor mounts and the new trans mount.
So whose kit did we use?
We used XHP, so Extreme Hummer.
Okay.
So we used the Extreme Hummer to do it, and they provide you with a good start. I mean, a really, really good start to get going. The motor mounts, the trans mount, and then you have to fabricate from there. So fuel lines, where to put the fasts, stuff like that.
So the ending details. So I mean, XHP gave us the intercooler, the radiator,
yep. The cooling stack,
all the mounts, where to run all our cooling stack, all the piping.
Yeah, so they give you the piping, the cooling stack. You do use the original AC condenser because this does have AC.
Okay.
We used the original AC condenser. This had the 6.5 had a engine cooler in it, so we took that engine cooler and we made that our new trans cooler.
Okay.
So we went through it, made it our new trans cooler, and which actually really nice because I mean my trans temp's pretty low.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to use that.
Yeah, and the nice part is again it's there. You just have to make it work.
Yeah, so there's a little finesse that goes into the finishing product. I mean,
exactly.
As far as that goes, when I was watching you, I feel like it was a lot of basically arranging where lines go so that they're not going to rub and not going to get chafed, and just basically running cooling lines, brake lines, fuel lines, a lot of stuff like that. And it seemed like towards the end there, you were kind of running out of space between the engine, transmission, and frame rails.
And I was exactly because this does have rear heat AC.
Okay.
So that takes up a lot of space.
So this is probably the most challenging. I mean, the 2005 has a lot going on.
Yeah.
The later model, they started making these in '94, '93, I think, for the civilian unit.
When it comes down to it, too, like the heat and AC. So you want the vents to work, like in this where. Yeah. The 6.5 had a vacuum pump on the motor.
Okay.
Where the Duramax doesn't have a vacuum pump.
Okay.
So we want to. We need the vacuum. So that way. We want the vacuum. We need heat and AC to work. So now we have to put
that's one of the biggest challenges. I mean, these Hummers were kind of notorious for having poor heating and ventilation.
Right.
Basically, an afterthought. The Hummer, the military never had. AC on the unit, so they put it over here in the passenger compartment,
right.
Which is why the passenger compartment's so tight. But for a big vehicle, there's just not a lot of room. I mean, everything is between the frame rails, so you just don't have a lot of room to package.
Yeah, you're cramped in here for a big vehicle.
Yeah. So, about the suspension kit.
So the suspension kit we put on this was built from XHB. He custom fabricated all the lower control arms, and then he fabricated the upper portion for the new shock system we put on it. This one here we used King shocks with the reservoirs.
Yep.
So it's got a really nice soft ride.
Yep.
Compared to the factory.
Yeah, the truck rides nice. I mean, it really does.
Yeah, you go over it a bump and you're not hurting yourself.
Yeah, it soaks it up pretty well.
The other thing that I really like about this is that the horsepower it's got behind it. It's fun to drive. Not practical, but fun to drive.
Sure.
So.
Why do you say not practical?
I wouldn't take it to the grocery store every day.
Why?
It's big.
Okay.
Doesn't fit through a drive-through. Doesn't fit in parking spots very well.
That's my experience driving these. They drive decent when you're done building them. They're not bad, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially compared to stock. I mean, the power helps a lot to make it fun.
Yeah.
But they're very wide vehicles. They get a lot of looks. Very, very, very few small spaces are built for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, even like a day like today, trying to just stay in the lines on a windy day.
Yeah, wrangle it through the wind.
So it's, you know.
Any challenges with the suspension kit? Did you have to do a body lift on it?
I did. So I did have to do a 3-inch body lift because the Duramax is taller.
Okay.
And then with the new cooling stack, it's taller. So to fit everything under the hood, actually, with, you know, again, the new Charger, the VVT, it's bigger. So you actually have to put the 3-inch body lift in it to clear everything.
Okay. So anybody doing a Duramax swap, you're going to have to do that body lift. The suspension, I think the upper shock mounts also kind of interfere or don't, or no?
Well, if you were to do the suspension, you'd like the control arms and the shocks, you'd have to do the body lift just to clear the body. Or if you're doing the swap, you have to do a body lift.
Okay.
So no matter what, it has to have a body lift.
Yeah. And then, you know, interesting bit of information that a lot of guys don't think about on these things, if you haven't driven one, is the alignment, which is a real challenge.
Right.
Now my truck had no adjustable alignment pieces. I know this one had the later model alignment adjusters on it. Is that good? Is that bad? I mean, what's the deal?
So off-road wise, like yours had no cam adjustments. Like
no cam adjustment on the old ones, right?
Yeah, like camber Casper adjustments in the cams where like on any Duramax, you know, where yours was a year previous to that design. So with yours being that year previous, it used shims. So in the off-road world, like if you really wanted to go Baja and then like beat the living hell out of it, yours is the one you want.
Yeah. Okay.
Because nothing's going to move. There's no give. There's no play.
Right.
This one here, it's still solid, but you get it. You know?
Yeah. I know we had a few spots during this build where you were stumped. We were stumped, just kind of like knocking our head against the wall. Tell me about those especially challenging moments and kind of how we got past those.
The brakes, getting the brakes to work. With the Willwood brakes, they all have to be in a specific location.
Okay.
They were designed for this truck, so one caliper goes on the rear of the hub on the right side, and then the other caliper goes on the front. So getting those to work properly was challenging.
Yeah, we had these brakes. We had them powder coated to the truck.
Yes.
And I think there was
So when we got them powder coated to the truck, they came. The bleeders were on the bottom and not the top.
Okay.
So dealing with that, dealing with again the ABS.
Yeah.
Getting the truck to stop properly with the ABS, where it's not kicking on and the truck's not wanting to slide.
Yeah. So the ABS does work on this truck.
The ABS does work on this truck.
Right. Okay.
That and then wiring it. So there's no instructions of like a swap kit.
Okay.
Once with the swap kit that's on it, there's no really instructions as in like, hey, this is how it's wired, because they're all universal wires. So it's not like you can look at a normal GM.
Around back.
Yeah. There's not a normal GM wiring diagram that you can look at.
Right.
Luckily, when we did it, we had yours to compare, which was kind of nice.
So we had another LBZ Hummer to look at, which is useful.
Right.
We knew that one worked.
Yeah, we knew that one worked, and we were able to take that one as guidance. So.
And you did that one too. So
yeah.
Just been a year.
Yeah. It's been a fun time. So.
Okay.
Well, do you want to drive?
I would like to drive it. I'm curious how it compares to my 94.
All right.
Okay, so right out of the gate, I get in this thing and I notice it's a lot nicer than mine in the interior. This is being in 2005. The 94s were a little bit on the rough side. I notice he's got a nice shifter. Looks like it's out of a Camaro. The dash setup. So we got an Edge CTS on the dash, and then just 2 analog gauges on either side, voltage and fuel tank. I really like the CTS in the dash. That's a nice.
Yeah.
It's inexpensive, but it does the job nicely. And
well, it does it nicely because you can change.
Exactly.
So you can pay attention to what you want to look at.
Yeah.
So if you do want to switch it, your PIDs, you can, and that's the nice part about it. So.
And stock, the Hummers come with 37-inch tall mud tires on them. this truck has 40-inch tires, and they're spaced out to clear the brakes. They're on a 22-inch wheel, maybe.
Yeah, it's 24s.
24-inch wheel, sorry.
Yeah. So it's got 24-inch wheels.
It really tracks. I mean, it goes straight, man. I mean, a little bit of steering input, but like for what it is, it really goes down the road pretty straight.
Well, you gotta think it's a windy day too.
Yeah,
so,
I mean it's windy. It's not ideal. Anybody who's from this area knows 176 is notorious.
Something else too is like you know, you're driving at what, 60 miles an hour right now, and we're having a conversation. You know?
Yes, I can almost hear you perfectly over the tire noise. No, really, the tire noise isn't that bad.
Right.
I would say, you know, it's got light steering feel too. It doesn't want to dart. It doesn't appear to be fighting me. You know, for having 40-inch tires, you know, usually there's some compromise there. So,
right.
And those brakes, yeah, those feel good. Mine still has the inboard brakes. This one has the new Willwoods on it. I can definitely tell the difference right away when I touch the pedal.
So why did we spec the fuel system on this the way we did, with the injectors and the pump size?
Yeah, so this is a 60% over and a 10 mil pump on a Stealth 67 turbocharger. We shouldn't be just barely knocking on the door of 800 horsepower. Really, I wanted the truck to be drivable above all else. So I want it to be smoke-free. I want it to run and drive nice, right? I want it to be a great reputation of the company. It's easy to throw big parts at stuff and make big power. The reality is this truck has factory differentials in it and 40-inch tires. You know, if we get stupid with it, the only thing that's going to happen is going to be back in our shop to replace differentials and CB axles. So I wanted to really build a well-balanced setup.
Okay, so we kind of did that to be fun but reliable.
Exactly. I mean, you know, putting dual fuelers and extra belt and, you know, non-stock turbochargers, all that stuff introduces more headache to you, especially in a swap vehicle.
Okay.
I mean, bad enough you're dealing with the swap, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to give you more stuff to deal with.
Right, so we didn't want to throw 100 over injectors in it, 200 big injectors.
I mean, sure, we could have done 200 over injectors, right? I mean, like, we could easily make the power target with that, but then the truck's going to be hazy all the time. It's going to be nasty to drive. It's going to have cold start, white smoke. It's just overkill. So basically size the whole thing as a balanced package to be barely knocking on the door 800 horsepower.
And like drivability wise so far, just your couple minutes already, do you like it compared to yours?
I think the steering, for some reason the steering feel feels better than I remember mine in this truck. The shift quality, the engine response, the sound, I mean, I did the same setup in my own truck, and I did it for the same reason we talked about, and it's kind of remarkable how much similar they drive. I mean, it really feels very similar to my truck driving it.
Okay. All right.
I mean, for a truck that's originally designed with 165 or 150 horsepower, whatever it is, to be able to handle, you know, this big power, and like, stay predictable. You know, a lot of people don't realize these things are on four-wheel independent suspension, and like, there's not a lot holding the wheel straight, right? So I mean, you apply 1,200 foot-pounds of torque to that, and it'd be easy to throw the alignment out as soon as you add power.
Well, exactly, and then we added rotors onto it with a little bit of a wheel spacer and 40-inch tire.
Exactly,
and, you know,
all that torque is moving further and further outboard.
Yeah. So I did notice that a little difference between yours and this one. Just, you know, when you get into it a little bit full throttle or heavy throttle.
Yeah.
So why would, or not why, but well, like the difference between this, tuning this, and like a, with the hubs and the differential compared to like a truck, where, you know, you just have a transfer case and a rear diff.
Yeah.
Like, Now, is tuning difficult because of that, or?
I would say the tuning is pretty similar to a truck, with the exception of the transmission tuning.
Okay.
So certainly there's a few adjustments that need to be made for the air intake. It's got a snorkel style air intake. The mass airflow sensor's in a different size bung. So you're tweaking things for that. You want the throttle to be, you want the truck to be responsive, but you don't want the throttle to be touchy, because it's got really aggressive gearing in the truck, in this thing.
Okay.
So we want we're working on trying to have a nice smooth power delivery, and then, like you said, with all the gearing in the tire, in the transmission tune, we want the transmission tune to keep the truck in its power band, not be overly luggy, not be smoky, not be doing a bunch of stuff that that we don't like as far as that goes. So I would say I have more time tuning the transmission on this Hummer than I do making any engine tuning adjustments. This is basically tuned very similar to our standard King file or standard high output LVZ file, just scaled for the injectors and the turbocharger and the pump.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, it's definitely, they're fun to drive. So
they are fun to drive. I really wish we could take this one off road for this drive. I think that would be a lot more fun. But we kind of reserve those first for the customers.
Right.
Try to test it out, but not be too rough on things.
Yeah.
That was about 90 miles an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, 90 miles an hour.
Once you get over 85, 90, it starts to want to wander a little bit. That's Hummer life.
Yeah.
I don't think stock, they went much over 60, 65 on the highway.
Yeah.
I've cruised in mine at 80, 85 for a little while. It surprises people.
It's surprising though how well at 60, 70 miles an hour it does cruise.
It really, of course they're wind bricks, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah, like you said, stock, 60, 65 max?
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely a big difference. You should be happy.
I think the customer's going to be really happy with it. I mean, just how it is, and the presentation on the inside, that's the one thing I noticed compared to mine being a 94, a lot of cracked parts and bezels, and just not as nice on the dash. It looks really clean. Well, steering feels great.
Well, it's been a long time waiting. I mean, of course the time frame went a little longer than it should have with the pandemic and trying to get parts.
Yeah.
With just the engine alone, it took 10 weeks to get the pistons. So,
Well, I mean, COVID obviously makes supply chain issues that difficult. Like you said, getting pistons for the engine, and that holds everything up. I mean, luckily we had suspension. We had a lot of other projects you can work on the truck, but at the end, basically waiting for parts.
Right. Yeah, I was waiting for part, but now, hey, the end product, I like it. It looks good, performs good.
Yeah. Is there anything you do different on the next one? I mean, we've done 2 of these in-house now.
Yes. Clear yes on that. Doing yours, the first one, and then doing this one, there was things that I did differently, and then to do another one, I would do some things more different. I would install the shifter while the body's off.
Okay.
So, things that I did different on the first one than the second one, I would definitely do on the third one to cut time down.
Yeah.
And make life easier.
Okay.
Because that was a hurdle, doing the shifter, making the shifter work, and stuff like that.
So. Yeah, the shifter looks great, by the way.
Oh yeah, I mean it came out well.
Yeah. I like that you can still use the push button 4-wheel drive. I mean, it's.
What I like about this one compared to yours, though, is that the location of some of the stuff, like the shift, like the push button 4-wheel drive, the shifter itself.
Yeah.
The dash, like you said, the analog gauges turned out really nice, and the location was really nice.
All right, Jeremy. Well, it's been fun chatting with you. I think this customer's been really happy. I mean, this thing's got no weird rattles, no shakes, no BS. I mean, it feels pretty well sorted for the few miles that you put on it. I think he's going to be really happy with the performance.
Yeah, no, really happy to get out and talk about it.
For sure, man. All right, we'll wrap this one up. I'm Nick.
All right, I'm Jeremy.
Catch you next time.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.